What's happening, everyone? It's the Cassius Morris Show. Thanks for tuning in to episode number 188 with comedian Ryan Sickler. I'm super happy about this podcast. Before I jump into it, I just want to quickly start this episode off by simply saying thank you to two people, Joey Coco Diaz and Lee Syatt, who just ended their 8-year run on the Church of What's Happening Now podcast. Incredible run. You know, I'm almost at a loss for words as to what to say. You know, this show has meant so much, not only to me, but to so many people, in a way that I really don't think that a podcast, or many podcasts at least, have ever captured. It created a vulnerability in sharing within this community that, in my experience in the past 10 years, is unparalleled to any community that I've ever seen built online. The most positive, supportive, loving, real community. It really is just a testament to Lee and Joey, how real they kept it, how hard they worked to build what they had. I watched this community grow. You know, Joey had plenty of success, but in terms of a podcast, it was pretty new. And I watched it grow from 150, 200 people in the chat on Stickam, back in the Stickam days, which is a live streaming site that doesn't even exist anymore. But we knew each other by name, everybody in there, because it was only select people that would be in the chat. So we grew it from that community where, let's say, there was 50 to 100 people actively chatting to what it's become today. And not only that, this show personally changed my life. This was the first podcast that I was ever given the opportunity out of Los Angeles in the mainstream podcast circuit to be on, was Joey Diaz. I remember it was before Adam Carolla, where for Adam Carolla, I even called in as a fluke, as a caller, and they ended up liking my shtick. Joey gave me the opportunity from the jump to come on. Not once, not twice, but 3 times on the podcast. Virtually completely unknown, some kid from Canada, because he liked what he saw. And we had a real relationship, and we still do. But I just wanted to get that in there right off the jump. Thank you, Joey and Lee, not only for what you've done for this entire community, like I said, but for what you've done for me personally. You guys changed my life. You guys were the first to give me a platform to get in front of the comedy community and the comedy fans and the podcast lovers, and to get my voice heard and whatever I was promoting at the time out there. So I am eternally grateful to Joey and Lee. Thank you for everything you've done. Today on the podcast is Ryan Sickler, incredible comedian, all-star podcaster, if you ask me. I mean, this dude is in the top 5 podcasters in LA. I don't even think that's debatable right now. Make sure you go check out The Honeydew with Ryan Sickler at thehoneydewpodcast.com, and they have awesome episodes that are being pumped out all the time. And this is really a crossover I'm excited about, man. Ryan's a good dude. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Ryan Sickler, thanks for joining me, my man.
Dude, thank you for having me.
Yeah, 100%. It's great to speak with you. This is evidently long awaited, too. People were really excited to see this happening, so...
I never can believe that, just so you know.
You never can believe. Hey, I have trouble myself. I think that's the entertainer's neurotic sort of sense of self. I think we all share it. So curious what's happening with you right now, man. I mean, just to kick it off, what's going on in a regular day in the life of Ryan Sickler right now? What's the schedule looking like?
Well, it's funny you ask, because this week it just changed. I'm a dad. We're back to school now, and everyone's being homeschooled. I'm a single dad. I got my daughter half the time, so half the week I'm sitting home homeschooling, and the other half the week her mom is. So the days I don't have her, normally I drop my kid off at fucking elementary school, and then I can leave and go record, go work, go write, go do whatever the fuck I need to do to pay for all this shit, and then pick her up at 5:30, and then I've got the night with her. But now my day is being a teacher's assistant, sitting next to my daughter, finding this book, this color thing, this, this, to this, to this, to this, because they're all sitting home being schooled, because our fucking leaders of this state spent more time trying to figure out how to let people eat fucking sushi and drink alcohol on sidewalks and get our goddamn kids back in fucking school safely.
That's a fact. That's definitely a fact.
So my days now are swallowed up by, I'm working on projects and people are like, you got to email me back. I'm like, it ain't happening today, bro. It ain't happening today. It's going to be, I got to cram it all in on the days I don't have her, because also I can't afford to have a tutor or someone come over every fucking day all year, you know?
Yeah.
That's just, that ain't happening right now.
Well, that's a huge expense.
Yeah. And then when I'm not with my daughter, then it's podcasting, doing interviews if I can, all that stuff.
Nice. So yeah, definitely jam-packed. So how old is your daughter, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind. She'll be 6 in October. She's 5.
Okay, and she's the only daughter you have?
Mm-hmm.
So did you ever expect that you'd be in a situation homeschooling her?
Fuck no.
Right.
No. And my stepson, her brother, he's 17 and he's starting his senior year like this. So I mean, I didn't expect it up until last year when it happened. And by the way, they're like, oh, this year. I'm like, it ain't. They say last year, they refer to it. I'm like, it ain't last year. This shit was March 2020 to May. It's this year still. Last school year, but that shit was this year.
Yeah, we're in monthly time, not school time.
Yes, that's right.
So how hard was it to really adjust to that? I mean, how hard has it been, really?
It's been difficult as fuck. I'm not adjusted. I am still adjusting. Like, I don't know. You know, it's kindergarten homework. That's not the hard part. The hard part is trying to keep your kid focused when they're in the comfort of their own home with all their toys and shit right there at the ready.
Right.
You know, all their snacks, all their this, all their that. None of these kids are, you know, I'm talking about kindergartners now, not the other kids that have been in school for a while, and obviously not kids like my stepson, but these kids aren't seeing other kids get in trouble. These kids aren't getting in trouble themselves. These kids are missing out on human interaction and what it's like to go out and play with people and meet people and talk to people. They're just on a screen all day. But then they tell you can't have your kid on a screen for more than a certain number of hours a day because that's bad. But again, you're eating sushi out on the sidewalk, so the kid's on the fucking screen. They get 2 15-minute breaks and they get like a 45-minute lunch. And the kids, the teachers have done a great job doing what they can to do, but also everyone's on Zoom. So Zoom crashed the first day. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You know, you're dealing with people's Wi-Fi connection and this and that. Like the audio cuts in and out.
Especially when you get a big group of people in a Zoom call. I mean, even one-on-one can be challenging at times, but when it's all those people, it's sometimes impossible almost.
Yeah, it's just been really difficult, and it's something we all have to obviously do, but it's taken my ability to, again, the virus already did it. We had the riots and looting here at the studios in Santa Monica Music Center.
Yeah.
And now it's like, fuck, I can work a couple days a week and I'm trying to cram all that shit in. So you had hit me up so long ago. Actually, I think you hit me up. I think we were communicating and then the riots happened and then it just fucking set us so far back. And we're just getting, I shouldn't say we've been able to, you know, continue to record and everything, but we're just now being able to start, you know, we just got Windows. It's been 3 months, you know, so we're just now starting to really be able to move forward with doing other things other than just, you know, for a while it's just been, and it's just been the Honeydew and the Patreon, the Honeydew with y'all, because that's all we had been able to do before we get, you know, moving forward again. So
yeah, exactly. And that's really good to have the Patreon feature also. So for people who don't know, the studio that you record the Honeydew and everything out of in Los Angeles was actually affected and looted during the riots, right? Yeah,
I mean, we were corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and 19th Street. We got hit hard and it fucked us up. But I will say the incredible amount of support from the Honeydew fans, the incredible amount of support from, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say, I know I can say Tommy Lee and his wife, Brittany Furlon. Tommy donated 3 drum sets, 2 that were actually used on tour with Motley Crue. So when this shit's all over, because they can't do in-person lessons, because especially literally with the transfer of spit in saxophones, woodwinds, that sort of thing, they won't let them do it. So, but drums, they're talking about maybe letting somebody sit in between, do that sort of thing. But these kids will be able to learn drums on a Tommy Lee set that was actually used on tour. He gave a brand new set that's never been used. So, dudes, everyone's awesome. And there's so many other good things that we're working on here too with the outreach through the arts. We're going to help some kids with scholarships and I wish I had. Lana Negretti is the owner. I wish I had a Lana Negretti in my life when I was fucking 16, 17, because I was just talking about this. Like, I went to college, but I didn't know anything about. I just thought you further your education, and that's where you go to college. I never considered a trade or a trade school or a academy of this or whatever. And I just know
this is what you go do.
Yeah, that's it. And I've got no parents. I've got no guidance. I just going to college because that's what everyone's supposed to do. And then you're paying these astronomical amounts for fucking books and supplies and just alone. Let's not even consider the fucking classes and the courses. So we're going to be working with these kids here where we're going to give them scholarships, and they're going to be able to come in and watch my producer, Ash, who's fantastic. They'll watch him live switch, so we can spit out a line cut at the end, the mixing board, whether it's editing or graphics or camera or actually podcasting or audio. These kids are going to learn how to produce. And then, I told my stepson, dude, come and learn. It may not be your thing. You might not be a technical person. I get that. But you don't have, and there's nothing wrong with Little Caesars, but you don't have to go work at Little Caesars for minimum wage. When you get out of high school, you and these other kids have the opportunity to go jump into the real world and start producing for people, making, anywhere from a couple $100 a day. Eventually you get in more, and boom, what real producers cost when they've been working a while, and then the connections you're making and everything. And they're not $100,000 in debt to some fucking school, working now in a major they never even took in the fucking first place.
Seriously. And it's such a time where, I mean, you can also start so many other things just to make money to keep yourself going through that, because it's difficult to keep the money going. But I mean, look at things like Patreon, like you mentioned. Look at things like Fiverr. I mean, a young person who has any sort of skill online can start moving and shaking and sort of doing these things. That's really cool to hear about Tommy Lee donating to there. I watched the podcast that you guys did. You seemed like you were really happy during that podcast, because it seemed like you were sort of going down memory lane.
Dude, come on. If you'd have told 16-year-old me I was going to have my own show someday and Tommy Lee was going to sit across from me and we were going to laugh, I would have been like, let's
get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Or let's hurry up and fast forward these next 30 motherfucking years so this shit can happen.
Seriously.
But when I met him, I teased Britt because, I've known Brittany for a long time, and I was like, hey, it was a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about you. You're Brittany's husband. It's an honor, and I gave Brittany a little nudge, like, let 16-year-old Ryan Sickler meet Tommy Lee. I just gave him a big hug. He's such a good dude. He's so nice. He's really kind. Again, and it wasn't just drum sets. He had stacks of it. He had all kinds of shit he donated, and they were like, "Come get." It was so much we had to make 2 trips, and we had a U-Haul van. That's
insane.
What Tommy Lee did. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, what a guy. It's really nice. It's really good when you hear that too, because it's one thing to be that guy, to be the crazy guy from the band, but it's another thing to have that human element to you, and also to be able to differentiate it. Let me ask you this, just sort of out and about in the stand-up community lately in LA. Can you talk to me about what it's been like? Because since I was thinking of differentiating your business self from your regular self, I'm sort of seeing a pretty large segment of comedians leaving LA. And of course, you guys are all friends. So what's that like? Because it seems like a lot of people have to separate their love for comedy for their family and other things right now.
Yeah, man. I've been laughing to myself about, all since I can remember, I've wanted to do comedy,
Yeah.
whether it was stand up or whatever it was. I wanted to make people laugh. I really wanted to stand up was absolutely a part of it. I had a goddamn Eddie Murphy headshot in my locker in 7th grade in middle school. It was from his magazine, like that
Nice.
one when he's young. And then a virus, and you put your heart and soul, you pour everything into something, and then a virus comes and takes it away. And I just start laughing like, none of this is real. Doesn't even fucking matter any goddamn. I keep thinking about people like, where's the beer guy at? The guy that's selling beer
Yeah.
at the stadium. What
At
the
the
fuck's
stadium.
he doing right now? I want to know what all the weird little jobs.
He's walking down the sidewalk screaming.
Yeah. Where's the ticket taker? Where's that guy? Anyone that pursued a career that involved an audience is on pause right now. So, and families first, so it's weird. I'll answer it in 2 ways. One, yes, there is this, what feels like this exodus of, and it is of big, great comedians who are leaving to go elsewhere for their families or financial, the truth is, this is a city where we overpay for everything. And, a friend of mine, Jen's a realtor, and I talked to her about this stuff, and I'm like, why don't you own? She's like, no, I'm not going to own in this city. Your property will be positive, but what you get for the amount, they're wanting you to pay $750,000 to $1 million for a condo downtown where there's a homeless camp outside and human feces on the wall. Who the fuck wants to do that? Nobody.
No one in their right mind.
No. So you can go to a state like Texas or Arizona where you get all your income. Yeah, maybe your other taxes are a little higher, but they're not taking what they're taking here. And people can't afford it anymore also. So they're doing what's best for their families and moving out, doing what they got to do. If comedy doesn't exist here, if people aren't auditioning, if things are Zoom now, so why do you need to be here to audition? You could be in Nashville or Phoenix or Austin or Jersey, wherever everybody's going. So there's that's going on. And when it all does come back, the Comedy Store and the comedy scene and the Improv and Laugh Factory, I said they're going to look a little different for sure.
Yeah.
But comedy's not ever going to die. I mean, Richard Pryor's gone, comedy rolls on. Carlin's gone, comedy rolls on. The greats are gone, and comedies continue to roll on, and it will continue to roll on. And what I'm seeing now here, I haven't done them yet. I haven't done a digital show. I'm supposed to do one. I'm still a little nervous about it.
Sort of
on the fence about it. Yeah. It's not what comedy is. It's what it has to be. One of the things it has to be right now. I love what Burt Kreischer's doing with the drive-ins and really changing everything out there. I love what Chappelle's doing with the outside shows. And what it does prove is that talent is all that matters. These agents, these managers, these networks, these companies, agencies that have put these walls between us and these people and said, no, we're going to tell these people get to go over. And everyone else figured out a way to go through, around, over, under that fucking wall. Fuck you, we're going, and boom.
Yeah.
If you're funny and people want to see it, you can do it in a parking lot. You can do it.
Yeah.
They're proving you don't need these venues, and that's scaring a lot of people. And it's honestly, I think it's empowering the creative community. And I think it's a really positive thing to watch a guy like Burt Kreischer go out and rock drive-ins and watch Dave Chappelle rock an outdoor amphitheater or not even amphitheater, a goddamn gazebo. A gazebo.
See, I missed that. That's badass.
To watch these guys go out and do these, even the digital shows, some of them are doing well. And right now they're doing these Magic Castle shows up in Josh Adam Myers. I've been watching him. Bill Burr's going and doing these. You drive up in your car, but you're performing live. So, comedians will always figure out a way. They're hustlers. They're not like actors and actresses who have to have their lines written for them, handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating. They're the creators. They're the originators. And you go through all these filters of people to say, well, you shouldn't say this. You shouldn't script this script. Fuck you. They're going out and doing what we want to do, and we're doing it the way we want to do it now because it's time. look, it's sink or swim. So fuck
Yeah.
listening to all the haters. Fuck listening to all the naysayers, the doubters, the you can'ts, the well, what ifs, none of that bullshit. Either you're doing it or you're not.
Or you're
And
not.
a time like now, it ain't going to happen for you if you're not. So I think right now is when you go all in on yourself, not when you put it on pause. I think right now is when you go hard, and when you get through this on the other side, you're better off for it.
Yes, you know, I totally agree with that. And you perfectly sort of summed up my feeling on, because it's a collision of two feelings with me, and that's why I'm also on the fence about the virtual shows and stuff, because like you said, and you phrased it well, it's not what comedy is, it's what comedy has to be. For me, it's kind of like being allergic to every ingredient in a breakfast sandwich and saying, well, we'll give you gluten-free
Yeah,
bread, we'll
yeah,
give you turkey bacon,
yeah.
we'll give you a tofu egg, and then it's like, okay, well, it looks like a breakfast sandwich, kind of smells like one, but it ain't a fucking breakfast sandwich. So you
No.
know what I mean? But at the same time, this is a sink or swim, like you said. It's sink or swim. So you got to get out there and get doing your thing.
But also for me, and this is just for me as
Yeah.
an art, stand up is hard enough as it is. To now add in someone's Wi-Fi speed,
Yeah.
someone's background noise, and dog barking. You know what I mean?
Literally.
Like, it's hard enough to deal with the drunk fucking table at the club. That
Yeah.
now we gotta. So again, yes, it's what stand up is temporarily. I think what comes back normal, maybe the drive-in shows keep going. I really think that's a really cool thing, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of digital stand-up shows when stand-up is back. Maybe I'm wrong. Hell, I thought reality TV was going to be the disco of television to prove me wrong. So I don't know, but I doubt it.
No, I've been there too. Like for example, I said Snapchat was going to be nothing. But then, you know, now when I see an app like TikTok come along, I make sure not to make the same mistake.
Yep.
But no, it is going to be a while. I want to talk about your upbringing. You mentioned that you always sort of loved comedy, but you didn't really have much support. Talk to me about that. Like, why were you on your own at 16, 17? Did something happen?
Yeah, well, my dad passed away when we were 16, and my mom and he had already split up. They got separated when we were in like the summer of 5th and 6th grade. That's when they got separated. They got back together about a year later to try to work it out. That shit lasted about a year and a half tops, but not well. It ended, I should say. It wasn't well. My mom left. And we lived with our dad. My dad was a single dad. He died when we were 16. And then we had to move in with our mom. We had a choice as minors to either live with our grandmother, who was nowhere near our high school, or our mother, who was just up the street.
Just up the street, okay.
Yeah, and but didn't want anything to do with us, and stay in the same high school district. And all we had at that point were our friends. That's it. So we moved in with her, and then she would leave and she would stay at her boyfriend's throughout the week. She'd come home on like Sunday, a couple hours to do laundry, or swing by real quick, grab something on a Wednesday night and bounce. But my brothers and I raised each other from 16 on. Yeah, I've been on my own. I lived with my grandmother after that. She kicked us out when we turned 18. She died. And then after that, it was just bounce around until, you land on your feet and do your own thing.
Oh, wow. Well, that's certainly a wild upbringing. So where does your love for comedy creep in? Was that something that you had from a very young age before this, or did it creep in while you guys were raising one another, so to speak?
No, I mean, I pinpoint the moment. I've talked about it on my show too. Like, I will never forget, we had, it was called Super TV. It was early days of cable, and the box was about as big as the DVRs today. That big. Had a button on the top, you pushed it, and after, 6 p.m., you got like a HBO, couple other channels, networks. There was a Playboy one, shit like that. And they softcore shit. I remember seeing like naked tic-tac-toe and shit like that. But
really, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I feel like they had that then. I don't know.
That's some old school shit.
Yeah. So one night, I come downstairs, and I still remember the HBO intro. It's that flying over the city thing. All the lights are coming up, and I sneak down, and my dad's watching this movie, and I'm behind him in like the little hallway, and his recliner's facing in, and I can see the TV around him, and I'm watching. I see kids, and I'm like, oh, well, so I'm a kid. I'm like 10. I'm 9 or 10. And I see these kids, and I figure, well, I'm probably allowed to watch this, but I know I'm supposed to be in bed, so I stay behind him in the hallway, and I'm watching.
Right. And you have him in your field of vision, right?
Yeah, he does not know I'm back there.
Right.
And it turns out that the movie is Richard Pryor's Bustin' Loose, and I laugh so fucking hard that I get caught. And he turns around and sees me, and it's, I don't know what time, it's 11:30 maybe, and he's like, hey, get in here. And I was like, oh, fuck. I go in, he goes, sit down. And I sit next to him, he goes, finish watching this with me. And that was it. I'm telling you, that was it. It was everything. It was, Richard Pryor's a god. I want to make my father laugh for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, it was all right there in that little moment. And then
the bonding.
Yeah, huge. And it's so funny because he taught my twin brother, he taught him about cars, and he works in managing an auto recycling company. You know, my younger brother, he worked with him on some other shit. He's a fucking scientist that works for the Army. Like, it's so interesting. These little seeds he planted early on ended up growing into these fucking, and literally he did plant, it's so ridiculous. I can't believe I just said this, but he had, there were 2 Christmases, we went and dug up like a goddamn man. He dug up real trees, rooted in the burlap and everything, put them in, keep it alive for Christmas. Went out front, planted them in the yard. To this day, that house was a big house. They're bigger than that fucking house. Wow. They're huge pine trees, huge. They're still there. I drive by, I'm like, those are the fucking trees my fucking dad planted. I got to go by and get pictures of them even closer.
He just went and planted them himself.
In our front yard. And now these days, they're monster pine trees. Monster.
Wow.
So, you know, making him laugh, watching him laugh, and then he'd slip me shit like Rodney Dangerfield, George Carlin. He pulled me out of bed. I'll never forget this one. I'm in 7th grade. It's midnight at least, and he pulls me out of bed and goes, come here and watch this. And it's Eddie Murphy doing Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood on Saturday Night Live, and I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And that's a whole nother new explosion world of, and then from then I was at SNL diehard. Like, that was,
I can imagine,
my shit, which also led into Evening at the Apollo right after that. And I'm like, wait, and I watch people sing and do comedy there and shit too. And I'm like, oh, so I started seeing that. I'm like, oh, there's all kinds of shit going on.
And you'd see someone on there, and you'd see them in something else, and it probably just kept growing and growing.
I'm like, that was that guy. Yep. And I that was the birth of all of it. It's all childhood bullshit. All of it.
Interesting.
It always is.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be, and that makes perfect sense. So, and now tell me if I can make this leap, because I'm curious to really know the genuine answer. Does being sort of like on your own, so to speak, with the exception of your brothers from a bit of a later age, did that help you when going into comedy at all? Because in a lot of comedy scenes, you are sort of on your own, or was it not relevant at all? Because it cannot be also.
No, you bring up a good point. We talk about this something. You can come in, Ash. It's all right. Sorry, it's my producer, Ash, trying to get the hell out of here.
It's okay. Shout out to Ash.
What's up, Ash? Yeah, comedy's a solo sport, you know, like wrestling or tennis or any of those, boxing, you know, it's a solo sport. It's nice when we can do festivals and things like that, because then you get to be around a bunch of people at the same time. But usually you're only crisscrossing with the people that you're seeing at the club that night, whatever. So, I've been working without a net since I was 16. So comedy, I'm like, you know, also having your own parent tell you ain't shit, you know, it toughens you up. So like these internet fucking trolls and these comments that shit on my laugh, it makes me laugh when somebody's like, podcast's all right, but your fucking laugh sucks, man. 1 star. I genuinely, it makes me laugh. at that. So
how can you hate someone's laugh? The noise that they make when they're the happiest. Like, why would you hate someone's
I
laugh?
can
That's
see
so
how
mean.
people can hate my laugh.
I mean, I don't hate it. I love it when you and Lisa get in the room. Then it's like,
Oh
I
man.
love it. But I think it's great. But you can't be affected by that because you've been through. So this was your mom saying this?
Yeah. So
you were just like, fuck the world. I've already been.
What
people have
can
attempted
you
to bury
fucking
me.
say to me that my own mother looked in my face and said, I hate you. You're a piece of shit. You're a loser. You'll never amount to anything. Told the courts, the state of Maryland, she didn't want me as a kid, and put that. We've reconnected, and I've talked to her about all this shit. But you know, it's almost this weird, twisted thing where it in the long run, instead of letting it, that's the difference. So that's where a person's inner strength comes from, and constantly doing work is you can either let that stuff destroy you and ruin you, or you can make it fuel for your fire. And I chose the latter. And, you know, again, somebody's going to come on and rip on my fucking, like, big deal. That's all you got. Like,
for real.
That's 2 minutes of your little life you're never getting back to shit on me for something that affects me zero, you know?
When they were watching you, by the way, so it's like, really, who's benefiting?
That's right.
Here?
You're right. Now, how long did you watch me? You got more than 2 minutes to send that email.
Yeah, exactly, though. So you had so much, I guess, strength and resilience. So how old were you when you start going into comedy clubs? Hi, I'm Ryan Sickler.
I did stand up for the first time ever in my life. I was 20. A friend of mine was dating the girl that owned the, her dad owned the club or ran it or whatever. And he was like, you got to go try it out. So I did. And, you know, I loved it. I fucking loved it. I did it for a couple months. And then,
good first set.
Wait,
no, it's okay. Don't worry.
I did it for I did it for a few months, but then some life shit happened and just wrecked and I didn't do it again for another 7 years when I got to LA. Wow. Maybe even later because I did improv first. But I did not have a good first set. It was just a bunch of friends there. I had fake buck teeth. Like,
oh, really?
I didn't know what the fuck I was even doing.
You were like a prop comic?
Yeah, I was like a prop comic for a minute. I mean, not even, but you know.
Yeah.
But I remember the night, like the electricity went out. The microphone didn't work. The buck teeth broke. And I was like, man.
Oh my God.
And it was awful. It was awful.
You're standing there with one buck tooth, like, when am I going on?
I still remember it in front of people I knew. I was like, man. And that's why I laugh about, you know, comedians especially. Like, I've interviewed a bunch of 90%, I would say, their first set did not go well. And we all are like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give everything I have.
That's the part I always try to understand.
I'm going to fix comedy. You ain't fixing shit. Yeah.
I'm going to change this.
It's the worst experience of my life. Let me give everything I have to it so a virus can ruin it in the 2020.
For real. And it'll all be wiped for a little while. Yeah. So did you go to LA in pursuit of a career, or did you go to LA and then think, I'm going to try stand-up again?
No, I came here with that purpose of doing comedy, but thank God I always was like, you know, there's a chance that never happened. So I went to school for mass comm in college. I learned production, all that shit. So, you know, I've been writing and producing out here for over 20 years, like, you know, and I'm glad to have done that. And it was fortunate because I needed a day job where a lot of actors and actresses needed the night gig. So I need the day gig so I can go do stand up at night. So I would write, produce, you know, get in that post-production world, production world, working on sizzle reels and upfronts and everything for all these people, networks and stuff. I've been fortunate enough. I worked with Oprah Winfrey. I've worked with, are you out? I'll see you. Thank you. Great work today, Ash. Thank you. Shout out to Ash.
Shout out Ash. Honeydew listeners love them.
Are these for me, Ash? You want them? Yeah, I do want them. Cool. Thank you. I'll resupply you.
A little something, something.
Yeah, a little something, something
No.
over there. Just medicine, just some legal medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, I'm glad I did, because now it works. It's helped me in the podcast world. Like Ash and I work together on all the promos for the shows. You know, I'm able to you know, write. We're doing promos for the YouTube, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's all good, and it's given me an eye for, you know, artful B-roll, shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that people don't even consider stuff like that. Room tone. You know how many motherfucking times I worked on something, some asshole didn't get room tone. You know what I mean? Like but if you don't know that, you don't know that. So I've been, for a while, I was always like, oh, it's a day job, I don't like it. And then I really was like, fuck that, man. You're still doing comedy, you're still doing all these things. And shit, these days you can't just be a comedian anyway. Even Seinfeld's got a goddamn series. You know, it was a small series at first, you know, all that. So there's nobody right now, especially if you were just a stand-up comic only that really didn't do anything else, you're kind of fucked right now.
I completely agree. And it almost goes like the opposite way for podcasters too, because I mean, I challenge anybody to find more than two, maybe one or two podcasters who are famous from just being podcasters, who never done stand up, never acted. You know, it's like it's a difficult thing to sort of achieve. So I think that the real lesson for me as a creative person is just that I think the answer is versatility, especially to be prepared for a situation like this, because if you can reach people online and in person here and there and do this stuff, but I think a lot of people are going to learn from this, man. A lot of people
and you know what, I agree. And you know, I don't know, there's always a stigma. People like, oh, you got a day job, you got a day job. Yeah, motherfucker, I got a day job and a night job, and I do three. I have not worked less than 3 jobs since since I can remember. Definitely in this city, I've never worked one job in the city of Los Angeles ever since the time I've been here.
That's crazy.
And now you add in your writing gigs, your producing gigs, stand up, you add in podcasting, you add in all these other things.
It's a lot of shit.
Yeah, and people like to put the stigma on somehow you're not a comic if you got a day job. You're not. Yeah, fuck you. You ain't a comic if you have a day job.
No.
Well, what are you right now, motherfucker? Because I'm still a comic. I'm still a comic with a podcast. I'm still a comic with a Patreon. I'm still a comic with a monetized YouTube. What the fuck are you, mister? I'm only doing stand-up. I don't have a day job. Notice I said mister. The women never were like that. Ever.
Right. That's true. Yeah. I mean, these guys are jumping from spot to spot, but in reality, I mean, having interviewed a lot of musicians too, a lot of these musicians who aren't, you know, at ultimate level, they work day jobs too. And yeah, there's totally nothing wrong with that. And do you find that when you encounter people, there's a lot of that mystery around what it is to be in entertainment, or let me not say mystery, misconception about what it means to be an entertainer? Because a lot of people seem to think it means you're immune from any regular life.
I mean, even as a kid, I guess I thought the same thing about athletes and all that. You know, you just feel like they're these larger than life people. And then as you get older, you start realizing like, oh, so-and-so got a divorce. That's some real shit. You know, so-and-so got robbed or whatever. Yeah. It's just, you realize that these are, you know, ordinary people with possibly an extraordinary talent in this one fucking thing. And I say this all the time too, like, we all play a lot of roles in our lives: fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, cousins, aunts, uncles, employees, employers, athletes. You're not going to be good at all of them. No one bats 1,000 at every role. You could be a great teacher and a shitty mom. You know what I mean? Like, that is possible to do.
And vice versa.
Yes, and a great mom and a shitty teacher. You can be all of these things. No one's going to bat 1,000. So I try not to judge everybody on that one role.
Yeah.
But if I see that shit carry over and I'm like, oh, you're a shitty teacher and a shitty mom and a shitty
Maybe you're just a
employee.
shitty person.
You're a shitty person.
You're just a piece of shit. Fuck the positivity. I'm done.
If I could stack up a few turds, you seem to be a piece of shit. You know,
you're on it. So let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to create anything. I'm just genuinely curious as to whether or not this is happening. Is there any sort of us versus them or us and them mentality with comedians now that people are leaving as opposed to when everybody was there and it was the store and the improv?
Honest to God, I would say I haven't felt that at all. I feel like it's sad and supportive, and it feels like the end of a true era, and people are realizing what's going on, and that people are doing what's necessary for themselves, their families, their careers, their finance, all of it. And I feel like it scares some people because we don't know how much longer this shit's going to last. I feel like it's very supportive. I feel like the people have been really supportive. I'm seeing a lot of love for Joey and Lee on the church out there. And, you know, people are obviously super supportive of Rogan. I don't know how many people have really been public about where they're going, so I'll be careful about who I say and what I say. But there's a lot that are going, a good chunk. And, you know, it's one of those, man, that sucks. Love you, wish you well. We know we're going to see you anyway. You know, we know we're going to see you at some point. You'll be back here to do something. It's just not going to be all the time. And again, but going back to comedy, it's like I said, that's that solo fucking sport. So like, if I don't see you when we're on the same show and we're not constantly doing stuff, I don't see you because you're doing your shit and I'm doing my shit.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's not going to, I don't know. Definitely the face and feel of comedy is going to be different when this all starts back up. And who knows how long it'll be before every show is packed again with people. Maybe some people are nervous, maybe they aren't. I don't really know, but we'll find out.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I feel like more people are starting to get more comfortable now. I'm starting to see people going out a lot more. Catering services where I'm at in Canada are starting to open up. And just little things like that. Like for me, for example, you said, where's the ticket taker? Right here. I was one of them, and I was doing those.
Were you?
Yeah, I was doing those those shit jobs. Yeah, I mean, really, but I was doing all that stuff at the concert venues and stuff. Do you think it's possible if enough comedians move to one super center, let's say somewhere in Texas or wherever it is, that there could be another sort of LA for comics?
Oh yeah, if enough sure. And look, LA is LA because it's the history of Hollywood and everyone coming here. Same thing with New York. Chicago's a big comedy town. But if all of a sudden everyone said, nah, LA is a shit show, the state is fucked, it's done, we're out of here. I mean, after that earthquake, they talked about moving, and they did move a lot of production up to Vancouver for reasons. They moved a lot to Carolina. They talked about maybe moving to Vegas. So, look, money's always going to go where the money is. And if
talent follows.
Yeah, and if Joe Rogan builds his own comedy club in Austin, that thing's going to be massive. And you bet your ass every comedian's going to want to go there. And look at it this way. Joe Rogan's show does more views than the fucking Tonight Show, a lot of them combined. So
Fox.
If you're going to, especially if you're a fucking comedian, if you're going to get on a plane and fly from LA to New York to do a Comedy Central show, or you're going to fly New York to LA to do, the Tonight Show, you're definitely going to fly to Austin to do the Joe Rogan show if you're asked. Definitely. It doesn't matter where the fuck he is, you're going to do it. That's the guy and that's the show.
That's a good point. And he had a lot of people coming in from far other places than LA to do it in LA. So I don't see why it's any different. And this is why it's so good to talk with you about this, because as someone who's really interactive with a lot of people in the community that also don't do podcasts, they seem to think it's over. People seem to think the whole scene with everybody is over. And I hope that, people can express that it's not over. It's just changing.
It's changing. It's not over. It's not over at all. People need comedy now. Look, I do know just from talking to people and podcasting, it seems like numbers might be a little bit down overall. Not much, but enough, because people are usually listening when they commute, when they travel, when they exercise. And a lot of people are at home right now, and they're not listening as much, or they're not. So, you might actually, it might be sitting in the cut right now, but when this pops off and people are back out, it might boom back up again. Things are very cyclical. They come in waves. None of us have ever seen any shit like this anyway, but there's definitely the end of an era. But at the end of an era, a new era begins. So this is not over by any means. It's different. It's weird. It's fucked up. It's confusing. It's a lot of things, but it's definitely not over. But if you think it is, then it is for you. That's what I'm trying to say. This is the time to go all in on yourself. If you're just going to sit there and do nothing, then when this is over, you're going to be sitting there with nothing.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you want it to be over for yourself, the world will surely be happy in helping you to accomplish that, and it won't take long either.
2020 don't give a fuck.
Doesn't give a fuck.
2020 don't give a fuck whether you want to or not. So you
Savage gangster. It's crazy. So let me run through these questions that came from your listeners, and we'll do them quickly, sort of speed questions.
Okay.
Brandon wants to know, who is the funniest comedian that you know personally?
Personally, Tom Segura. Yeah.
Tom Segura. He cracks you up every time.
Every time. And I go out on tour with them, and I still sit in the back and watch and listen and laugh. And also the reactions of the crowds, different ways at different jokes, things like that. But yeah, Segura.
You guys travel in style too. I was like, look at these bad motherfuckers, man.
He travels in style. I'm a guest.
Doesn't hurt though. Doesn't hurt.
I appreciate it, believe me. But it ain't no we. I'm just along for literally the ride.
Literally the ride. No, fair enough. Rob Veras. I don't want to mess up these last names. I'll say Rob. He says, I'm curious to know who's had the biggest impact on your life and to shape you for the way that you are today. You're such a good interviewer and good sounding person.
Well, that's thank you.
And he thinks it's from your childhood, by the way.
It's definitely my father. It's a two-parter, really, because it's my father for an influence on me. As far as an interviewer and things like that, I would say it's the ladies in my life. My grandmother would sit and talk. We talk a lot. She'd make up stories when we were kids at night, and just, watching her improv, we'd be like, tell us a story when we go to bed. And she would it was never it wasn't sweet. It was funny as fuck.
Right.
And she would love to make us laugh. And we'd be like, oh, and then the next night we'd be like, tell us that story again. She'd be like, I don't know it. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't have that in the inventory.
Yeah. Which my daughter and I do every night. It's like, Dad, tell me a story now. They're always funny stories. They're never sweet or whatever. They have good lessons and shit, but they're fucking funny. But my friend's mom, who I considered a mom growing up, her name was Sandy Patterson, Miss Sandy. She and I would sit up late at night, and I would talk to her, and she would talk to me. And there were a lot of times I would purposely take the other side of an argument just to be devil's advocate, just to see what it was like to argue that. And I'd be like, ugh, I liked it or I did. And I think, honestly, that is a really big part in why I listen and why I'm open to hearing thoughts that aren't in line with mine, and opinions that I don't really agree with. I think that's a really big part of it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. She gave you that room to question and grow in sort of a safe environment. So
also, obviously, as a comedian, as a kid, I just wanted to be heard. Mm-hmm. So I understand what it's like to want to be listened to. And I think that I try to do that the best I can.
Definitely.
I think I'm a good listener.
No, I think you're a great listener. I mean, I love your podcast as a podcast host. So, I mean, definitely. The last one I wanted to bring up was Gabriel Angel. He says, I want to know if you have any hilarious sex fail stories to tell. And he adds, I once had to do a quick trim around the hedges and forgot to pick up, and someone found the mess around the toilet bowl. So he gives his embarrassing stories. So
Oh man, I mean too many to sit and go into now, but I'll tell you one was it's kind of a fail. I was in high school. The girlfriend and I were dating. We went out one night. We pulled into this old baseball field where we played Little League, and we had sex in the back of her little tiny Subaru Justy. It's a little tiny pregnant roller skate, and we were done, and we were putting our clothes on, and she's like, "Why'd you turn the light on?" I'm like, "I didn't turn the light on." And we turn around, there's a homeboy with a flashlight.
Ooh.
Yeah, who'd been we don't know what he was doing, and I buck naked. I drove that little tiny car. She got fully dressed.
You're driving
Listen,
it naked.
for a good 30 minutes trying to shake this dude. He followed us, maybe 15, 20. But I'm naked the whole time driving this little car away from this fucking freak.
Oh my God, man.
I'll say that one.
I love that. And I've heard a number of your other stories on the Honeydew as well. So always great stories from you. But listen, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. I know you got a crazy schedule, dude, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Definitely. Where do you want people to check you out at the most?
Oh, just Ryan Sickler on all social media, ryansickler.com. Subscribe to the Honeydew Pod. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Everything's there. The Honeydew, stand-up clips, all the other shows and stuff I'm working on right now will be up there, so go check it out.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And there you have it. My exclusive interview with Ryan Sickler, comedian, podcast host. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ryan, again. I appreciate you guys checking it out. And, of course, make sure to go check out the Honeydew podcast, coming live and direct from Santa Monica, California. I also wanted to let you guys know that we have a new Instagram page, which is instagram.com/Cassius Show. And it's officially dedicated to the podcast. I'm separating my personal page from the podcast page in order to be able to be pumping out a lot more content. So I hope you guys go check it out at Cassius Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming podcasts. We have tons of comedians, musical artists, and really plenty of other different types of guests coming on that I've never delved into that I'm going to start bringing on from all different types of worlds. So it's going to be a lot of fun coming up. This is really the second phase of this show, and think we're really doubling down and we're getting big with it now. So make sure to subscribe here and on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cassius Show. The new Instagram page is at Cassius Show, as well as on Twitter if you want to follow it there. My personal Twitter is Cassius Morris, and my Instagram is Cassius Morris _. Go ahead and follow me on there. Appreciate you guys listening. Until next time, it's Cassius Morris saying, rock on.